Ever since diesel locomotion took over from steam, New South Wales locos have seen many different colour schemes and liveries. In this very special episode of From the Lens, we look at most of them that coloured our lives and rails from the 1950s to the early 1990s, when it was always a surprise what you could see train spotting. Stay tuned. The first diesel locomotives that entered service for the New South Wales Government Railways, being the 40 and 41 class locomotives, entered service in 1951 to 1954. The two colour schemes that were displayed in this period were the verdant green with a yellow line, and then slightly later the Indian red with a yellow line. But there was one special scheme in 1954 which we will talk about later in this video. During the late 1950s and 60s, as diesel locomotives were taking over more and more of the steam services, more classes entered service. During this period and for quite some time after, diesel locomotives were painted in the cat's whiskers colour scheme, which was a Tuscan red background with yellow trim, and on the front and rear of each loco there was a whisker design, which got the name cat's whiskers for obvious reasons. In early versions of this there was also a red line trim that is seen here, with slight other variations in the whisker design, from a curved whisker to a straight whisker. During the 1960s and 70s there was little variation other than the reverse cat's whisker design, which was Tuscan red background with the cabs painted solid yellow with Tuscan stripes. This also aided with visibility of oncoming trains.
Who can take a rainbow?
The Candyman?
The Candyman.
Ah, Candy Livery. In 1981, the newly formed State Rail Authority had taken over from the New South Wales Railways and wanted a facelift. The newly appointed exec team sifted through 120 possible schemes, taking into account visibility and safety, and the winning scheme was what we now know as the Candy scheme. Unveiled in August of 1982, the Candy colour scheme is a red base with a thin yellow line, a thicker orange line and a thicker again white line at the bottom, with a silver roof. The Candy colour scheme was the main livery for 10 years, being replaced by Freight Rail Blue in 1992, and remains one of the most popular colour schemes today. I'd like to take this quick opportunity to give a shout out to all of our Patreon family, with a special hi to Aussie John. If you'd like to get extra content, updates and much more, why not become a Patreon? For as little as $5 you can unlock some great content. Now back to the video. The Candy scheme was so popular that most rolling stock was painted in the colourful design, with it slowly showing up on urban and interurban trains as well as rail motors. The Red Terror colour scheme emerged in 1988 as a simplified scheme to the Candy. Cardiff workshops applied it to non-frontline locos, such as 44s, 45s, 48s and 49s, as a low time-consuming paint scheme. It consisted of a red base with a white stripe at the bottom. In 1989, State Rail rebranded to Freight Rail, and with the new brand came new orders for locomotives. The 82 class and 90 class were ordered, and Freight Rail did away with a lot of the older diesels. All of the new locos were painted in Freight Rail blue, along with a lot of the 80, 81 and 86 class locos. Freight Rail blue had a blue base with a thin white line and a thicker yellow line at the bottom, with a yellow cap above the cab. There were variations as seen here, with 8167 having a grey line under the yellow. Freight Rail also had a second little-known colour scheme for its non-frontline engines. That was a throwback to the cat's whiskers design of the 60s, this time in a green base with yellow whiskers, or no whiskers in the case of the X-Class. Delec Depot even used these colours for a time on its depot signage. By 2002, Freight Rail had privatised, and now all existing ex-government locomotives have their own brand livery. When Queen Elizabeth II visited Australia in 1954, a special train was retrofitted, including its 40 class locomotives, in royal blue with a yellow stripe. At this stage of Australia's history, this was also our unofficial national colours and not the green and yellow. In 1980, New South Wales celebrated its 125th anniversary of rail service, and to commemorate this, 4201 and 4836 were painted in special livery, with the official Australian colours of the green and yellow. In 1985, 4499 was painted in a special grey ghost candy to haul single-deck electric services south of Wollongong, but this was short-lived. Australia celebrated its bicentenary in 1988, and State Rail celebrated by painting several of their locos in the bicentenary colours and a striking triangular design on the nose of the cabs. Couldn't talk about liveries without a special mention of the non-diesel 46 class electric locos, which had most of the spoken about liveries, as well as Midland Red and one known as Custard. Here is 7301 at Delec Open Day in its Countryland colours. 3513 in Red Terror with the bicentennial triangle on its short hood. Thanks for listening this far. If I've missed any liveries, I'd love to hear about it, so comment below. Also, I've started a second channel called Train Stories with Barrie. Here's a short promo. If you like this video, then check out this one. And remember, sometimes the wrong train can take you to the right place.